Just because a domain name contains the name of a college or university does not necessarily mean that the domain name is related in any way to an educational institution. And fortunately, domain name dispute policies such as the UDRP allow schools to enforce their rights against cybersquatters just like any other trademark owner. Hi, it's Doug Isenberg, and the case I'm talking about here was filed by Columbia University, the prestigious and well-known university in New York City, against an individual apparently in Romania. The case involved the domain name columbia-university.com, and it was filed under the UDRP, or Uniform Domain Name Dispute Resolution Policy. Like most UDRP cases, it resulted in a decision ordering the domain name to be transferred to the complainant, which in this case was Columbia University. Now, interestingly, Columbia University itself uses the domain name columbia.edu, which was actually among the very first domain names that was ever created, all the way back in 1985. Columbia uses the domain name in connection with its website for all of its academic programs, including what it describes as its 3 undergraduate schools, 13 graduate schools and professional schools, a world-renowned medical center, 4 affiliated colleges and seminaries, 25 libraries, centers for the arts, and more than 100 research centers and institutes. The .edu TLD, or top-level domain, that Columbia University uses is restricted, which means that unlike popular generic or global TLDs such as .com, .net, and .org, only certain entities are eligible to register a .edu domain name. Now, the registration criteria have changed through the years, but the current rules mean that .edu domain names are only available to US-based post-secondary institutions that have institutional accreditation from an accrediting body recognized by the US Department of Education, which means that internet users can feel pretty safe interacting with a .edu domain name because it has essentially been vetted and is by definition controlled by an educational institution associated with it. But the reverse of that is not necessarily true. In other words, some educational institutions also register other domain names, such as in .org and even .com, which means that it can sometimes be impossible to know for sure whether a non.edu domain name is an official website, which is essentially what happened in the UDRP case for columbia-university.com. According to the UDRP decision, the domain name was registered by someone not approved by Columbia, who then used it to redirect traffic to web pages that advertised unrelated products and services and offered it for sale for $2,888. Interestingly, this isn't the first UDRP complaint that Columbia University has ever filed. I found at least 10 other UDRP cases filed by Columbia in recent years for such domain names as columbia-university.club, columbia-edu.net, Columbia University Online.education, and columbia-university.nyc, all of which resulted in decisions in Columbia's favor. Not surprisingly, there are also a number of other UDRP decisions involving Columbia trademarks that don't involve the university, including a number of cases filed by Columbia Pictures and Columbia Insurance, but that's a topic for another day. In any event, the UDRP panel in the columbia-university.com case apparently had no difficulty reaching a decision to transfer the domain name for a number of reasons. First, the domain name is obviously identical or confusingly similar to the well-established Columbia University trademark because the hyphen in the domain name makes no difference under the UDRP. Second, the panel said that the registrant lacked rights or legitimate interests in the domain name based on the university's arguments that the registrant had failed to rebut because it didn't bother to submit a response. And finally, the panel found bad faith for at least 3 reasons. Paragraph 4B4 of the UDRP says that bad faith arises when a registrant uses a domain name for commercial gain by creating a likelihood of confusion, which the panel said was present here because the registrant redirected the domain name to other websites that offered unrelated products and services. Next, paragraph 4B1 of the UDRP says that bad faith arises when a registrant's primary purpose in registering the domain name is to sell it for a valuable consideration in excess of its documented out-of-pocket costs, which the panel said was present here, given that the registrant offered to sell the domain name for $2,888. And finally, paragraph 4B2 of the UDRP says that bad faith arises when a registrant has engaged in a pattern of conduct targeting trademark owners, and in this case, Columbia apparently cited 8 UDRP cases lost by the same registrant. So this was a pretty easy case for Columbia University, which now controls the columbia-university.com domain name. And I suppose the lesson, which is one that Columbia has been applying recently, is to remember that it's not just for-profit businesses that are being targeted by cybersquatters. Colleges and universities and even primary and secondary schools are or may be trademark owners themselves, which means that they can use the UDRP to stop cybersquatters who may be targeting their students and prospective students, their alumni, their faculty and staff, their vendors, and others. If you want to learn more about the UDRP, please check out my masterclass on domain name disputes, as well as other resources on my GigaLaw website. And be sure to subscribe to the GigaLaw YouTube channel to be notified of future videos discussing other UDRP cases. Thanks for watching, and see you next time online.